everyone, welcome to the Voices of the Youth podcast. My name is Jen and I'm a youth worker, but today your host. Today we are here with some special guests, Danny, who is a world-renowned youth worker, and Ella,
That's all right.
who is a world-renowned sociologist. So welcome Danny and Ella.
Thank you.
Hi,
Thank you,
Jen.
Jen.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
So let's discuss something that has probably affected all of us in some way or another, which is the cost of living. All of us have, experienced that at some point recently. It's been a major modern day issue which affects everyone in many aspects, regardless of age, gender, or race. We can see in our field of work that in the newer generations they're experiencing this issue and are expected to transition from school into the world with this pressure. The pressure on planning how to overcome poverty as well, that's massive now, and how to avoid it in adult life. So that transition from school to adulthood is a bit hectic. This issue plays a major factor in other significant issues like the homelessness, decline in mental health, which is maybe like suicide ideation or, like crime rates increasing, even the severity of it, like decrease in newborns, and all of this is, hand in hand impacted through the cost of living also.
Definitely.
This one major issue is a never-ending toxic cycle. It has caused an impact on other minor issues like I've just mentioned, and with the lack of support services available or solutions now aiming to alleviate this pressure so that we can focus on these other like issues. Ella, like, you've dedicated quite a bit of time investigating this issue. Why do you think this topic is important and impactful upon youth?
Yeah, I think this topic is a major setback for youth. They're struggling to afford like basic necessities like food and housing and transport, therefore directly impacting their physical and mental health. Which also leads to financial stress during those developmental years, meaning youth are not gaining financial independence, therefore they cannot achieve traditional milestones like moving out, further education, or starting families as previous generations did in the past.
Yeah, this would also really impact youth in rural Australia, right?
Yeah, definitely. This crisis definitely impacts disadvantaged backgrounds, which deepens existing inequalities. It creates barriers for youth from marginalised communities, particularly First Nations youth, and people with disabilities who already face many challenges in itself.
And with your background in this area, in your professional opinion, what would be the best strategy to use if we wanted to see changes to the cost of living?
Yeah, I think throughout my studies, young people have limited power, but collectively they can influence and change a lot. The cost of living crisis is not an individual problem, but like a systemic issue requiring structural change across multiple levels, which would require youth-led movements. So some campaigns aimed at increasing the government youth allowance and expanding or adding similar support programs.
Yeah, I agree with the voices of many united. It can have the power to influence the decision, but I'm not too sure about the campaigning to increase youth allowance.
Yeah.
Just because I believe that in order to make sustainable changes, I personally would take a social democratic approach. Realistically, increasing youth allowance would unlikely be a solution and may keep us in that same cycle. I'm not sure if you also have that same...
I definitely agree. I see your points very clearly. I think youth need to start to question fundamental economic structures and advocate for alternate systems that prioritise well-being over profit. I think it's an important thing that youth learn how to organise, advocate and communicate to develop leadership skills through these collective campaigns, and youth-led campaigns can really highlight issues like the cost of living crisis I also think collective action reduces isolation and shame by reframing the cost of living struggles as a shared problem rather than an individual failure. This is the most effective strategy, I think, to tackle this issue because fundamentally everyone's going through it. And collective action builds power, creates change, and aligns with social justice principles that really align with youth work.
Yeah, and it is definitely sounding like this is a strategy that is possible to implement also. Just what you've been mentioning, by utilizing a youth-led collective action model, we unite all young people who are experiencing the same issue and normalize the struggle vocally rather than silently suffering in isolation. Like what you've mentioned, Ella, it's removing that shame, and then as a collective, we will seek to strengthen that possibility of a new way of living. Even by using this platform, for example, we were able to reach many people of all ages. We are able to informally recruit young people, just through speaking out there on this podcast. Yeah, just so we can create a strategy which aims to logically challenge governmental flaws and provide sound solutions which supports the government
Definitely.
in bettering the system. Doing so by understanding the crisis of Australian debt and reasons to why and how we've arrived to, having this burden. Danny, from your from the strategies Ella has advised, I may be putting you on the spot for a bit, but if you were to give a time frame of a successful outcome to the goal of alleviating this pressure surrounding the cost of living, what would you say is we need to focus on? To reach that.
Yeah, okay. Well, I think a good starting point to straight away focus on now is research. So, researching why and how we've got to this point, even what other countries have done in similar situations, what has and hasn't worked for them, and yeah, how they've gone about alleviating that pressure. I think, within the first week, say you had a 10-week plan, really spending time on research. I think that's going to be the most beneficial, just to understand what's actually going on. I think week 2, I'd suggest recruiting young people themselves right from the get-go. So having them involved right away, and allowing them to have a say in the plan, really gives them that sense of ownership. So I think, having them part of it from the get-go, even with the research, I think that's really important.
And how can we get young people involved?
So I think the best thing to do is meeting them where they already are. So going into schools, university campuses, on social media, festivals, things like that. And from there, just starting that conversation of how the cost of living is going. Ask them how they're handling it. Are they handling it? And I guess even starting to share with them the ideas that could possibly be done to start trying to encourage change. Sharing success stories of past social changes. I guess that gives them more confidence that something could happen, and these things are achievable. But I do think probably the best way to encourage young people, the best way to reach young people, I'm sure we can all agree, is through social media. So I would suggest maybe spending, say, week 3 and 4, setting up your social media accounts, so Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, all of those, and start posting, say, short videos of lived experiences, facts about how the cost of living is impacting young people. It might also be useful to maybe bring in a survey and share that on social media. So asking things like, how often do you need to go without? How often are you having to choose between fuel or transport to work? And so choosing between that and putting food on the table, like how often are these things happening, and are young people dealing with that? Say then week 5 and 6, you could spend that launching the survey, getting it out there, getting all that data, and then week 7 and 8, sharing the data on social media. I think that data that you could get from a survey like that alone will shock many people, and really get that message across and make it stick.
Yeah, definitely.
And then after sharing all of that, and really having it in people's faces, like this is what young people are experiencing, maybe for week 10 going and doing a protest, or I don't know, a strike or something like that, to really make a statement and show how important it is to make a change here.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, this whole discussion has been extremely beneficial. It's definitely starting to look like this is going to become a successful way of seeking reform and changes. So thanks, Danny and Ella. But from taking a collective approach, like utilizing that structural supports and applying the 10-week timeline, advocating and promoting and doing all these awesome things, like any other protests and advocacy, things that we're going to do, it kind of makes me question where, there might be a few bumps and issues that we might face. Like one that comes to mind is when young people, come together and join against something we're all passionate about. There might be a bit of frustration, which may turn into anger or rage, and things get a little bit negatively influenced. So, with this in mind, like, what other things do you think we might come across? All together as a voice in one. How can we overcome it? Also, what can we do?
I think personally, making sure the call for change comes directly from youth rather than the voice of youth coming from either youth workers, adults, or people in parliament, and to allow the action to be completely youth-led is so important. Another issue that I think could arise would be the lack of financial resources, time, and access to infrastructure needed to sustain this advocacy, as young people are often balancing study and employment. But these are the people who are also the most affected by the cost of living crisis. So it's definitely a difficult topic to tackle, but I genuinely believe with the power of social media and the power of young people, we can see real change occur, and proper help given.
Yeah. I think also another really important thing to keep in mind is the well-being of young people that are participating in trying to create this change. I think, if you say were to go ahead with a survey, or even sharing lived experiences through videos, making sure that young people are aware that it's going out for everyone to see, and making sure that they have that support to make the right decision if they wanted to be anonymous or anything like that. But also just speaking on this topic alone, and having all of these things brought up, that can be really confronting alone, So I think just when talking and really thinking about that topic, making sure that young people have that support there, if there's anything that they need support with. I think that's really important.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I hope, we don't come across these negative issues, but thank you guys for your time.
Thank you,
you for
Jennifer.
being here. It's
Thanks
been
for having
awesome.
us.
Great discussion.
Thank you.
I'm excited to see the changes that will be put in place once we start putting all this out there. But thanks Ella and Danny for all this.
No worries. Thank you,
Thank
Jennifer.
you. Yeah, thanks so much for having us on.
Talk soon.
Yes, talk soon.
Bye.